We are on the verge of something nefarious, okay? I need you guys to understand. We are on the verge of societal collapse, okay? You got people literally going, "Oh, these are straight up. These are straight the fuck up drones that are here to kill us." When they're looking at just like regular planes, we are cooked. Except Donald Trump is not. He knows what the drones are, okay? He knows that it's Chris Christie eating McDonald's. I don't want to dive into the drone stuff yet, but I guess I might. But before we do that, I have some choice UHC shooter memes as well that are on the docket, and I'm a little bit all over the place, but I want to get started with that one first. Let's close this chapter, okay? And then before we get to the drones, let's talk about the United Healthcare CEO memes that are coming out.
The health insurance CEO got shot. Wasn't that fucking crazy? That was wild. How we all had to pretend that shit was sad. That's just crazy. What a crazy thing. You know what I wish? Honestly, I wish he got shot in the belly or something, so he like lived just long enough to go to the hospital and get denied health insurance. That's what I really wish. Cocksucker.
I mean, you said I hate Akash, but he's cooking here.
Can I be honest? Too soon? It wasn't soon enough. That guy should have been shot months ago, probably. Fucking years ago. Honestly. I hate health insurance, man. I fucking violently hate it. If you don't hate it, you probably never had to pay for it on your own, to be honest with you. I hate health insurance, dog. Shut up, bitch. You give a fuck? I don't. This is where we differ. Hey, you know who agrees with me? Pretty much everybody else. That performative ass shit. I'm sorry, man. I don't, maybe that was in poor taste. I hope Brian, what's his name? Brian Thompson. Brian Thompson. I'll say his name. I hope he's looking up at us right now and he's able to forgive my sins. Fuck that guy, dude. Fuck that guy. Right in his face. Right in his dead fucking face. Right in his rigor mortis fucking face. I couldn't give less of a shit.
Why are you sending me this? Like, even people with large platforms like Hasan the Hun have good leftist politics. There's little they do to connect viewers to community organizing. It seems like they actively avoid it. Is this person actually from Atlanta? Because if they are, they would know that not only have I talked about the Stop Cop City protests, I've also personally given money to the Stop Cop City protesters. So even directly on Atlanta related politics, like I've been there. And my job also personally is to offer light to this sort of stuff. We don't need influencers. We need community organizers. I agree. Political education. I agree, which is something that I try to offer. Unions. I agree. Neighborhood councils. I agree. International solidarity. I agree. And proactive organizing. These influencers just build platforms and boil important discussions down to quick talking points. I don't watch streams, but the New Thinker pointed out that during Hasan the Hun's DNC stream, dozens upon dozens of organizers asked him to speak at community events taking place across the city, and he tacitly refused. Absolutely perfect example of the opportunism problem. Yeah, that's also not true. Not only did I actually offer coverage to the uncommitted movement, it led me to get kicked out of the DNC, but also I literally did attend the protests. In the first day of the DNC, that's what I spent my time doing. So this is a common critique I see from people I respect who don't watch him, but it's simply untrue. He's the largest contributor to Amazon labor union, subverting his employer, has done many streams with labor organizers on many different picket lines. He streams the UCLA Gaza encampment and DNC Gaza protests, had dozens of people coming up to him, thanking him for getting them into organizing, as he does tell his audience to get involved in local organizing all the time. I've been doing a deep dive the last few weeks on something I'm writing, and beyond a few things here and there, it just seems the personality cult around him obscures actual impact. While fundraising is great, he's still legitimizing the very company the union is fighting law. That's a crazy thing to say. Yeah, I guess I should do what this guy's doing and write a fucking Substack instead, because that's more ethical. Anyway, maybe dive a little bit deeper, my friend. Don't fucking annoy this person. Don't yell at this person. When you do yell at people like this, all you do is harden their positions. Okay? it's just stupid. I'm sure this person has done wonderful work. Okay. So I hope that in their deep dives they will be able to develop a broader picture. But yeah, if you do that, I hate you. If you go after this person and like yell at them and try to defend my honor or whatever, I hate you. Do not harass or bother this person. But yeah, I'm pretty familiar with how much privilege that I have. And I personally try to use that privilege for good. If people are concerned or confused by what I do, my goal is to educate, but also agitate, but also, most importantly, entertain. In the process, I try to dumb down a lot of these dense theory-based ideas, and I try to apply a materialist lens to why things are happening in the way that they are. And also on top of that, I try to do valuetainment like my goat, Patrick Bet David. And yeah, that's it. And I think that it is false to say that, I mean, it's not my impact. My impact in and of itself is nothing. But this community is comprised of many community organizers, and many people that have been able to successfully and sometimes unsuccessfully unionize their labor, unionize their workplaces. So, maybe this person is a little confused, but you can shit on me all day, every day. That's fine. But don't assume that this is a community comprised of dullards who don't know their ass from their elbow. These are people who are very impactful. So I think it's very stupid when people say shit like that without watching. That I won't let slide, it's objectively untrue. And I hate when people say stuff like that, when they're like, oh, these are just teenagers. They're dumb teenagers. It's wrong. I wonder what you did. Reads a personality cult to this person. Of all your qualities, I wouldn't say your personality is in the top 5. Yeah, I mean, I actively try to, even when I engage in like parasocial aspects of content creation, I try to use that as an educational moment. You know what I mean? So that's it. But most of this argument basically reduces to he should do everything but the one thing that he's successful at. And I always find that very funny when people are just like, hey, I recognize your place in this space as a successful content creator whose worldview is almost identical to mine, most likely. But I think you should stop the one thing that you're incredibly successful at, that it's so successful that like I recognize it, and do something else. It almost always gets reduced to that by both my haters who want me to shut the fuck up and go away, and even people who would normally be fans that also ironically advocate for the same thing. The unfortunate reality for you guys that want me to shut the fuck up and go away is that I'm not going to do that. And I also don't know why you think you have any say in this process. You can try to write a convincing argument on your Substack or whatever. I have yet to see it, but overall, stay in your lane. I'm gonna stay in mine, and I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing. Many people have come and gone. Some who have said Hasan is secretly a reactionary, maybe even, dare I say, a fascist. Hasan is this, Hasan is that. And it seems like my opinions on or my commentary has not changed. And yet many of those other people who used to say I'm secretly in the pocket of the DNC or whatever, those guys have actually left the Democrats and left any sort of socialist organizing. And half of them now straight up advocate for Donald Trump. So I don't know. You could call me anything, but you can't call me inconsistent, okay? That's crazy. Free Luigi.
You gotta give the people what they want, right?
Long live Luigi, free Luigi. That's right. This was a really funny article that Felix pointed to. I completely forgot about the root, Felix says. This article is so funny. Every other paragraph is like, Luigi had enough stands to make Taylor Swift blush. But if he tries using his likes and retweets in prison, he'll have a certified bruh moment. And honestly, at first you're like, come on, no way did the root go that far and did something so ridiculous. On this article titled, Luigi Mangione isn't the brilliant thirst trap y'all made him out to be. And apparently it's the third iteration of this article. Like they tried it. They tried different versions of this. Yeah, it says, is the cold-blooded United Healthcare CEO killer getting this much love because he's a white man? Why the anti-DEI United Healthcare alleged shooter isn't the woke icon you thought he was? Now, the reason why I think it's informative, instructive, is because in a moment like this, you get to see all aspects of the political spectrum and people from very different backgrounds engage in this unified response to say, no, this guy is actually bad. Okay. This guy is actually bad. Please stop. Please don't celebrate. The Root is also a black website. No, I know. And they hold an important role in this process. I've often talked about the angry, violent black man trope and the permission structure that liberals gain from having black academics or other, like from having black writers write articles that basically imply the black community has a misogyny problem, the black community has a homophobia problem. Things of that nature are like hyper focusing on black men in particular is almost always done from not a critical lens, but usually done from the insidious white supremacist lens that gives liberals who are otherwise woke and otherwise, I would say, usually aware of racial stereotyping, an opportunity and a permission to say things that, you know, racist white people of different political ideologies say openly. Okay? This isn't to say that, like, there isn't homophobia, queerphobia, or misogyny in the black community. It's just that it exists in every community, and hyper focusing on black people in this way oftentimes is done with this nefarious purpose. Anyway, we saw some versions of this in terms of like identity, like hyper focused rad lib identity politics being utilized against the solidarity shown by every group towards Palestinian emancipation, when people will be like, where was the watermelon gang at when BLM was happening? Or what do they call it? Watermelon Twitter? They talk about like the Palestinians like that. Now, it's just wrecker shit. Yeah. It's just wrecker shit for the most part. Just so you understand. It is not done with honest intentions, in my opinion. It is not done with honest intentions, but rather with a nefarious purpose. To say, yeah, no, the real victim here are not the millions of people that have been fucked over by their private healthcare providers, but instead it's actually the healthcare CEOs that contribute to this problem. Please, that's it. And there is no better example of that than this right here. Oh yeah, don't make no mistake. It's because he's a white man. That's why people love him. And oftentimes, what's really interesting about this is that it does come from like a valid assessment, because white supremacy is real. And yes, it plays a significant role in the way that we analyze society. So when someone says like a black person wouldn't get this level of appreciation from broader American society, yeah, that's true. Except you are not saying that. This is not the time and place to say that. And you're only saying that because you want your readers to basically turn around and not celebrate this act because you are afraid, because you have a different goal here. Okay, it's this. The goal is to finger wag. That's the only reason. The goal is to finger wag and use every orifice of media to tell the broader American public that how they felt in that moment is wrong. Okay, that's it. This is a perfect example of identity politics used for the explicit purpose of obfuscating class instead of combating existing injustice. Yes. Thank you, chatter. You pointed it out perfectly. But without further ado, let's read what this Root article was about by Madison J. Gray. Luigi Manzioni isn't the brilliant thirst trap y'all made him out to be. This cat is being heralded as some type of brilliant rogue vigilante because of his looks. Nah, son. This reads like Jake Tapper wrote it. This article literally reads like Jake Tapper wrote the article. You know what I'm talking about? The famous article that Jake Tapper wrote. What was it? Gang banging in the Rust Belt or whatever. The best line from the Godfather saga is from the second movie in the series. Michael Corleone says, "If anything in this life is certain, if history has taught us anything, it is that you can kill anyone." Maybe Luigi Mangione took this really seriously when he decided to allegedly bust a cap in the back. I don't know what to say about this. Okay. This was a white man or AI? No, I think it's an incredibly corny liberal who wrote this. I know it reads as like an out of touch white dude, like Jake Tapper, like as though Jake Tapper wrote it personally. No, it's not. It's not an article doing blackface. Some were shocked that the broad daylight killing could take place in Midtown Manhattan, one of the most monitored areas in the country. Others actually cheer for the killing of a leader of a company that has gained infamy among regular people seeking reliable health insurance. Before Mangione's arrest, when only an unclear photo of him in New York hospital circulated, people were hailing him as some kind of brilliant vigilante who struck a blow against an evil healthcare company. Others were lusting over him harder than they do Timothy Chalamet. Many believe this mastermind had fled the country for a place with no extradition laws, never to be seen on American soil again. Now we know that Mangione actually came from privilege with his Ivy League engineering and tech intern background. Again, Jake Tapper, gang banging in the media land but Lil Coddle was serious, busting op-ed in its ass, yo. This is a real article, man. As smart as he's supposed to be, Mangione was never about that criminal life. He did dumb shit like remove his face mask in a heavily surveilled area, apparently left a trail of evidence. And even in his perp walk, he wouldn't shut up. A violation of rule number 1 when you get cuffed. Folks, especially white women, are standing Mangione because he's young and handsome. And I guess pretty privilege also applies when you take a mugshot. Amazing. But it shouldn't come as a surprise because some of these same white women last month voted for a man who thinks their bodies are government property. Mangione's trying to fight extradition, where he'll be arraigned. He'll probably wind up in Rikers Island, where, trust me, all that standing by the public won't protect bruh. This whole episode created a new and probably needed discussion on the healthcare system, but unfortunately the focus has shifted to a man who really doesn't deserve the flowers he's getting. Yeah, this is incredible stuff. It's a fantastic article. Congratulations to The Root for yet another banger, okay? All right, that was fantastic. Congratulations. Like, there's a million articles you could write from the racial angle, okay, where like Americans' broad reception to Daniel Penny, okay, a person who dished out quote unquote vigilante justice against a black unhoused person experiencing a mental health episode in a system that failed Jordan Neely time and time again. And the broad reception and celebration of Daniel Penny is gross, okay? Especially when the very same media outlets on the right that personally hail Daniel Penny as a champion are also simultaneously in the same breath criticizing this other person who is seen as a vigilante that has broader reception, that has even more broader and more popular reception. But of course, that kind of takes the argument away from, shunning people and yelling at them for even daring to say, I don't personally care about this story at all. So, just bad writing in general, but I'm glad it exists because I like reading shit like that. I love reading bad articles like that. It's fantastic. Anyway, there was a couple other things I wanted to talk about with respect to protecting healthcare CEOs. I'm glad that Connor O'Malley is doing the right thing and is working tirelessly in defending healthcare CEOs, walking medical executives from their offices to their car.
Walking medical executives from their offices to their car. I had no weapon. I was going to disarm attackers with original song. The song is about how we need medical treatment. All diseases can be cured with a combination of bananas and water. For song link.
But this is Connor O'Malley. He's fucking hilarious. He's a comedian who does stuff like this all the time. He's great. Before you say this is not like a crazy person, chat. He's a comedian. He is presenting himself as a crazy person. I know, 127. Okay, I guess I'm not the most autistic in this fucking community. All right, Jesus Christ. He is a comic. This is a joke. Anyway. But at a time when we have many CEOs that are terrified, I wanted to speak about this one CEO who was asked on Piers Morgan's broadcast what he would say to people who celebrated Luigi Mangione. Now, the reason why I think this is really funny is because Peter Thiel is a real-life supervillain. Peter Thiel also partially is responsible for the Root, or at least the larger company that owned the Root and many others, Gawker Media, being destroyed. Okay, Peter Thiel, who actually, has real blood boys, is once again showcasing his charisma and defending the honor of CEOs.
And to those who think this shooter is a hero because he did it because he said this healthcare executive was presiding over a healthcare system which kills thousands of Americans by denying them cover, what would you say to them?
I don't know what to say. I still think you should try to make an argument, and I think this is you should, there may be things wrong with our healthcare system, but you have to make an argument, and you have to try to find a way to convince people and change it by that. And this is not going to work. And I don't know. Yeah. It's
that's cool, man. Okay, like why is Peter Thiel always panicking, dude? This is the most nervous, most anxious man I have ever seen. He's trying to make public appearances thinking that people will like him like Elon. It ain't working. Yeah, I mean,
I mean, there are all sorts of things one could say about it, but I don't think, and I think I think the motives feel. I don't want to go into all the particulars here, but I don't think there's anything heroic about him.
Nice, man. Nah, he did it. If you ever seen Peter Thiel in any sort of conversation, this is how he operates. Like, this is just what he comes across as. It's fucking crazy. I don't know why he looks like that. He always looks like he just dunked his head in a vat of oil. He just, you can see the nerves popping out of his dome. Obviously, people will say, oh, he's neurodivergent, but it's like, this is also an incredible time for Peter Thiel as well, considering all the play that surveillance technology is getting. Especially artificial intelligence-backed surveillance technology, which is what he does. That's his job. That's what he does for a living. So congratulations to Peter Thiel. He will be the one that wins the most from this process. Hold on. Jesus Christ. Delivery drivers that got the fucking cop knock freak me the fuck out, dude. Delivery drivers sometimes come in and they just they don't come into the house, but like when they're delivering and they just like knock on the door for me to see that there's a package, it is straight up fucking terrifying. It's like, bro, what are you doing? Like, you're knocking on the door like I've done something severely illegal and you're here to arrest me. What the fuck is wrong with you, man? It's madness. Kapıya birisi delivery. Kapıya vurdu da korkuttu. 3'te yerim. Şimdi yapmaya başlarsa 2.5 gibi. They're in work mode. Source, I'm an Amazon driver. Fucking terrifies me, dude. Still terrifies me. All right. Speaking of incels, from Peter Thiel to South Korea. Ladies and gentlemen, South Korea. MPs have voted to impeach President Yoon. We're going to talk about South Korea real quick before we get to the drones, okay? It is straight up fucking, this is a moment of joy and moment of celebration for the country that invented Neo-Confucianism.
Through a bitterly cold Seoul winter day, the crowd swelled in front of South Korea's National Assembly. An estimated 200,000 people, warmed by multiple layers and favourite K-pop anthems, hoping their sheer weight of numbers would push their parliamentarians to act and impeach President Yoon Suk-yeol. Further north, in Seoul's historic main square, a mirror image, if much smaller, protest in support of President Yoon. Passions at high volume here too, the soundtrack though stemming from South Korea's earlier decades.
저는 북한 공산 세력의 위협으로부터
It was fears of a retreat to those times that President Yoon set off 11 days ago with his short-lived declaration of martial law. He'd blamed an obstructive parliament, an opposition infiltrated by North Korean influence, claiming he was defending liberal democracy. National Assembly members left defending the chamber from special forces long enough to vote down the order. Today, the Assembly a place of sober political ritual. After a first attempt aborted last week when the president's ruling party boycotted the vote, today ballots were cast. The minimum required for impeachment, 200, or two-thirds of the Assembly's members.
In favour, 204 votes. Against, 85 votes. 3 abstentions.
It meant at least 12 of the president's party had voted for impeachment. Under its terms, Yoon's presidential powers are now suspended, but he's insisting he'll fight on, that his was an act of...
It's really interesting because South Korea's history with like military dictatorship and authoritarianism that is not so far away, that is in the not so distant past, that like a lot of people understandably have anger and resentment towards that sort of thing. And that's precisely the reason why I think liberalism won on this day. Like this is what American liberals think what their hashtag resistance liberalism looks like. And this is actually hashtag liberalism in action. Like they did literally vote for a guy who failed to facilitate a military coup. I think it's interesting, but obviously there's some serious historical reasons as to why it happened in the way that it did. You've had historically unpopular leaders engage in military coups. I think he failed to secure the loyalty of the military, or at least decent swaths of the military. He failed to secure the loyalty from his own personal party. He failed to do a PSYOP or a false flag operation in an effort to, at the very least, like create a serious threat where martial law declarations were seen as a necessity. He has a 15% approval rating, but I think that hasn't stopped other unpopular leaders in the past. Liberal W's did require sitting members of Congress to stare down riot police / National Guard types in the protests, something our Dems wouldn't do. I think there's that aspect of it as well. But like I said, I think it's more so about its not so distant history, its not so distant past, where a lot of South Koreans really grew to resent military authoritarian leadership, considering that there are plenty of people over a certain age that experienced that. They saw it. They know what it was like. So for them, this is a battle of survival. So I think that does play a big role, in my opinion, in the broad reception of this sort of martial law declaration, paired up with the fact that there wasn't really any sort of just cause for it. You can't just straight up be like, nah, there's North Korean sympathizers in the building, and that's why I had to do martial law out of nowhere. Especially without, there's no cause. Just or unjust, doesn't matter. You don't have your cabinet, and you don't have the military, you're going to get cooked. So there it is.
Governance, not insurrection.
I may pause for a moment now, but the journey towards the future, which I have walked with the people over the past 2.5 years, must never come to a halt. I will never give up.
While he waits for a final verdict within 6 months from the Constitutional Court, the Prime Minister assumes interim presidential powers.
He didn't have the military in its entirety. He had the special forces. But I feel like even they didn't have their heart in it, you know?
This was the moment the crowds outside heard the result live. Joy, relief, and in the background what's become the protesters' unofficial K-pop anthem, Girls' Generation's Into the New World.
I also think personally that there are far more powerful organizational tools that like the Korean labor unions have at their disposal. Like, look at how well organized this shit is. And they did this in a incredibly short period of time. So like there are so many factors. There are so many factors at play here. And I think that is all of those factors combined is the reason why this was immediately thwarted. Now, maybe I might be coming across as like a cynic or a little bitter. And I guess there's some truth to that. I am a little bitter because I look at this moment of celebration and I cherish it. I think it's amazing. It's impressive. But of course, I also have a tremendous amount of envy because when I saw this image, at least the top-down image of potentially 1 million people that were outside of the Capitol building waiting for the results of this impeachment to come in, I couldn't help myself but feel a little bit of envy when I saw the joy. I yearned to feel this joy one day in America, I said. And the reality is, I don't think we ever will, for a lot of the reasons that I mentioned. I think that's another materialist perspective. Koreans do not get paid for their labor, so this ability to put on a general strike within hours, they have seemingly less to lose and more reason to create solidarity and organize. Yeah, their labor unions are interesting. They have a lot of organizational power, but they're ultimately powerless in the face of like chaeballs in general. Even though they do end up doing like work stoppages and stuff, but the unions had a general strike ready to go in like less than 12 hours. A lot of people misunderstand Koreans as good at protesting. There's an extensive history of oppression of protest, which plays a huge role in their willingness to show out. Yeah, exactly. I think they also understand that they have protection in numbers, and they demonstrated that instantly in the night of the martial law declaration, and they continue to demonstrate that by showing up every single fucking day. I feel like we should do a deeper dive into many of the uprisings that took place that the American-backed authoritarian government actually very violently squashed, both in the lead up to the Korean War, but also in the aftermath of the Korean War as well. Because we played a pretty formative role in the development of South Korea. And not only that, but also, we played a pretty formative role in the maintenance of the authoritarian military rule in South Korea because it benefited us. Another bulwark against potential growth of communism in the region, another military base to be placed. And in that process, if you were to be violent with anyone and everyone that you personally thought was a threat to the established order, you could simply call a communist sympathizer and kill them. And many were killed. I think this plays a pretty big role in the current material conditions of South Korean existence. It's important to understand it better.
World.
We needed 200 votes, and I was astonished when the motion passed by only 4. I felt South Korea's democracy was still alive. Lawmakers should never ignore our voices in the future. It was an honor to be here with all these people.
I expected this result today, but now that it's happening, I feel so happy and moved that I burst into tears. Our people are great and we did it. We will keep on this in the future as well.
But how new is this world? The opposition leader Lee Jae-myung, a potential next president, was himself convicted of breaking election law last month and has 3 other trials outstanding. It may be enough for the crowds here that they prevented a journey back to an old world of military dictatorships past.
South Korea's parliament voting to impeach President Yoon Suk-yeol this morning. The news was met with cheers by opponents of Yoon's.
I'm jealous, dude. I'm jealous. I see this level of organizing. I see this level of action, and I see the reaction from the government And I can't help but feel a little jealous, man. I can't help. Now, of course, having said that, will this actually improve the day-to-day existence of South Koreans? Of course not. It doesn't matter. Like, this is a brief moment where they actually took to the streets and it worked. You know what I mean? This is what it feels like when I see people in other countries get free healthcare, and I'm like, why can't it be us? It's crazy. Maybe if you taught us, maybe if you spent 2 weeks out of the year not reacting to the zeitgeist and just directing the rest of us, many of us don't have time to figure this shit out on our own. What are you talking about? Everything that I do is literally hand-holding you through this fucking process. The fuck? Yeah, it's my fault that America is the heart of Red Scare propaganda. It is the heart of empire, and it very successfully destroyed any kind of labor militancy that it used to have. And one fucking Twitch streamer on an Amazon subsidiary corporation is going to lead the revolution.
People Power Party. The move to oust Yoon comes less than 2 weeks after he briefly declared martial law. That decision was unanimously overturned by...
It's not your fault, but you aren't part of the solution. Do you guys think you come across as like intellectual when you say dumb shit like this? That chatter is asking for direct action the same way so many chatters were asking you to tell them what to write in to represent an anti-genocide vote in November, and all we got were jokes about voting Biden. Yeah, you're right. I should have advocated for Jill Stein as a principled anti-genocide voter, even though I don't agree with her. I think a lot of you want hand-holding beyond the amount of hand-holding that I give you in terms of like where to go for organizing, you know? Very frustrating. People saw that one tweet and decided they wanted to bring that energy into the chat. I know. I was saying dumbass shit adjacent to these chatters as recently as last June. Please understand that this is just lashing out at allies as a part of the pipeline. You are doing a great thing. This anger is arguably a good sign. Yeah, not really. I think everyone has a little wrecker tendency in their brains, and they just kind of sometimes feed into it. Yeah, my goal is to get you to understand the way that the system is designed and then point you in the right direction, which is what I do all the time. If your arguments are, hey, why don't you just fucking stop the streaming shit because you're not a part of the solution, and, you know, rise up in arms and lead the militant vanguard that does not exist into a revolution, then, you know, you're kind of hallucinating an alternative reality. I look at the current material conditions, I look at the current culture and the attitude that people have, okay? We have no labor unions as the backbone, and the labor unions that we have do not exhibit any sort of labor militancy in general. So if you currently think that this is why I'm anti-accelerationism as well. If you currently think that like some kind of accelerationism is going to magically bring about a socialist revolution and instill class consciousness in the minds of many Americans, you simply have not gone outside and talked to your fellow neighbors. Okay? That's it. You need to be able to have labor unions and labor unions to have the courage to be able to actually fight, to be able to get to that point to begin with. This is part of the reason why I do not have issues with social democracy at this stage in American consciousness. I don't think that American social democrats are outside of the sphere of anti-capitalist sentiment in this country because of how hyper-capitalist and hyper-individualist and American chauvinist Americans are. Okay? That's it. Some of you literally chirp in the chat and sound like Disco Elysium NPCs from time to time.
Parliament. Chris Livesay is following the developments in our London newsroom. Chris, good morning.
Good morning. Well, it's the culmination of weeks of turmoil in South Korea, this critical American ally on China's doorstep. This morning, tensions are boiling. The moment the impeachment bill was passed, a mix of loud gasps and cheers when the...
It's like when people obsess over AOC rather than the 150 pro-Israel congresspeople in the Democratic caucus, you're focusing on one person that feels like you that has power rather than face the daunting reality that we have a lot of work to do. Thank you. Michael from Pennsylvania once again. Michael from Pennsylvania once again with another banger. Exactly. You have to understand that you have to rate people on a curve. You have to grade people on a curve. It comes with the recognition of what the broader space looks like, what the societal attitudes look like. It's always funny whenever motherfuckers come in here and they're like, why aren't you reading Lenin right now?
Speaker announced enough votes were cast against the president, some from his own party. Outside at opposing rallies, some were dismayed while others rejoiced over his impeachment. A crisis was sparked back on December 3rd when the president declared martial law. He said to withstand disorder and what he alleged were pro-North Korean elements inside the opposition. But the backlash was so intense, the decision was reversed just hours later. This morning, President Yoon is not backing down, vowing, "I will never give up." He's still in office for now, but the country's constitutional court must now deliberate on whether to uphold the impeachment. And if it stands, a new election will follow. Dana.
It's been interesting to watch from afar, Chris. Thank you.
Now to Syria, America.
Let's do which video could we watch that features more of the historical context, blowback style of South Korean politics that isn't like unimaginably reactionary. I know Blowback's entire season is fantastic, but I want just finished Blowback season 3 today. It was so good. Chat, it's all Korean War and its aftermath. Just listen to the last bonus episode. Starts with Young Suk Yeol being a pro-US anti-reunification hardliner in the summer of 2022. What is this, Mr. Beast?
This video is sponsored by Brilliant.
North Korea and South Korea compared. I don't know if this is good or not. I am always worried about YouTube historians. Dude, if you ask one more time to fucking do a David Harvey capital. Okay, all right. I'm going to start banning people. Mods, you can ban people too that ask questions like, can you do a theory stream? No, the answer is no. This is just about the Gwangju uprising. From a channel called Korea Now. Yonhap News Agency? Former South Korean president? No, I don't want that. Okay, let's do the Mr. B video.
North Korea is also called the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. That's a good one. Anyway, two East Asian countries on the Korean peninsula that are opposite in so many ways. And yet, not that long ago, relatively speaking, they were just one country, Korea. Yeah, this one's gonna be lopsided, folks. I'll start by showing you this, which many of you have probably seen before. One picture sums up so much, doesn't it? Most already know South Koreans enjoy a much higher standard of living and much more freedoms, but in this video, let's dig a bit deeper. That said, since North Korea is such a secretive country, there's a lot we don't know about. But it's difficult for North Korea to hide the fact that South Korea is doing so much better than it, based on a variety of factors. First,
I hope that as a history teacher, that's what people are saying, that he understands why there are vast differences in the development of South Korea versus North Korea, and maybe even the okay, chat. This isn't your opportunity to send me whatever like you Googled and the first thing you found out from Google on YouTube. I appreciate the many chatters that are trying to help, but like you're just sending me some crazy shit. There's a chatter in here sending me like a fucking DPRK news agency video, and it's like, calm down.
First, what do they have in common? Well, both are made up of mostly Koreans, you silly goose, and residents of both speak Korean. That said, residents of both have developed different Korean dialects over the past several decades, since residents of both barely interact. In addition, since it's taught widely in school, around 45% of South Koreans also speak English. The largest city in both is also the capital, although Seoul is much larger than Pyongyang. South Korea even has a second capital, Sejong, where many of the government's most important agencies are located. There is a culture in both that values communitarianism, or the greater good over individual liberty. Both have...
If he doesn't talk about Neo-Confucianism, I'm out.
have similar climates and have 4 seasons, although it does get much colder in the winter in North Korea and a bit warmer in the summer in South Korea. Much of North Korea has either a temperate continental climate or warm continental climate. Much of South Korea also has a warm continental climate, but along its east coast it has an oceanic climate and a humid subtropical climate in the south. Both are affected by annual monsoons. Both are affected by occasional droughts and flooding, but overall South Korea gets more annual precipitation. Both border the East Sea, or Sea of Japan, to the east, and the Yellow Sea to the west. Both are separated by the 2.5 kilometer wide, 250 kilometer long DMZ, or Korean Demilitarized Zone, which is probably the most dangerous border in the world. Tens of thousands of troops and dozens of forts line the DMZ, and it has around 2 million mines near it. Oh, and a bunch of wild tigers, since it's basically wilderness now since so few humans dare try to cross it. Believe it or not, a handful of North Koreans have tried in recent years. One North Korean man tried and got shot at by his own troops 40 times. That all said, there is a meeting point at the DMZ where South Korean and North Korean officials can meet and negotiate stuff. It's called the Joint Security Area, and it's actually a place where tourists can visit too. It's the only place where North Korean and South Korean soldiers can stand side by side. So anyway, why the heck is the DMZ such a heavily guarded border? Well, I suppose we ought to get into some history here. Okay, a very brief history. Humans have lived on the Korean Peninsula for at least 10,000 years. Around 4,500 years ago, these humans developed kingdoms in the area. There was the Proto Three Kingdoms period.
He went back too far. He went back too far. I thought he would go to Neo-Confucianism. He went back way, the Cold War way further than I thought, bro. Goddamn.
Three Kingdoms period, Northern and Southern States period, and later Three Kingdoms period. It wasn't until 918 that the entire peninsula was united by a dude named Wang Gyan, who founded the kingdom of Goryeo. The Mongols invaded in the 1200s and sort of held a grip over Goryeo until the mid-1300s. In 1392, General Yi Sung-gai established the Joseon dynasty after overthrowing the Goryeo dynasty 4 years prior. Shout out to King Sejong the Great, who put into place lots of reforms and even created the Korean alphabet during the 1400s. In 1592, the Japanese began invading the Korean peninsula, but after a few years, the Joseon dynasty was able to hold them off with the help of the Ming dynasty of China. Throughout the 1600s and 1700s, the peninsula under Joseon rule became more isolationist and a bit stagnant, developing technology. By the mid-1800s, European imperialist powers were trying to interfere, but the Joseon dynasty couldn't do much to stop them and was forced to sign treaties in which they were screwed over. A series of crazy events in the late 1800s led to the creation of the Korean Empire. During its existence, the peninsula quickly modernized and there were big reforms. In 1905, after it won the Russo-Japanese War, Japan was like, Korea, what's up now? So Korea signed a treaty with Japan in which it became controlled and protected by Japan in return for peace. Well, Japan went ahead and annexed the Korean Empire 5 years later. However, even as the annexation was taking place, a growing Korean independence movement was brewing on the peninsula. After Japan quickly crushed the March 1st movement, many Korean leaders fled to China. For the next 35 years, most of the resistance movements were organized by exile leaders in Manchuria, China, and Siberia, influenced by many peaceful demonstrations within Japanese-controlled Korea. Jump ahead to World War II, and the Allied powers defeat the Empire of Japan, resulting in a free Korea. Okay, well, maybe not so free, since the Allied powers now occupied it with their militaries. The Allies divided the peninsula at the 38th parallel into a northern area protected by the Soviet Union and a southern area protected mostly by the United States. However, as you could imagine, the Soviet Union and the United States had different visions for what a future Korea should be. After not being able to agree on a government, the 38th parallel became the boundary for the two countries this video is about. In 1950, Kim Il-sung, the new leader of North Korea, launched an invasion of South Korea to try to reunify Korea, but under communist rule. This led to a 3-year war that...
Okay, no, never mind. We're not just doing that, I think. Okay, I'm gonna watch the Hawking video instead.
Does North Korea hate the US? An irrational hatred for American freedoms? A crazy leader? Jealousy? Sadly, no. The answer lies in what they perceive to be decades of unprovoked US aggression that has left deep and lasting scars on the Korean Peninsula. The arbitrary division of Korea in 1945 and the devastating US bombing campaigns that followed during the Korean War are not distant memories. The mass death at American hands shaped a collective memory and a strong spirit of resistance against foreign domination, especially the US. For North Korea, the hostility against the US and its allies is easily seen as a reasonable defensive posture, a refusal to submit to the US-dominated hegemonic world order that denies independence to nations unwilling to bend to foreign policy interests of the US.